a real villain?
Well, technically, nah.
Have you ever caught a good guy like a real superhero?
Nah.
Have you ever tried a disguise?
Nah.
All right. I can see that I will have to teach you how to be villains.
Ew, cigarettes are gross. What is in cigarettes? Cigarettes contain tobacco, which is a plant. Tobacco has nicotine, which is a chemical that makes you feel tingly or hyper for a short time. Nicotine can be addictive, which means that when people use it more, their bodies and minds need more just to feel okay. Cigarettes also contain a bunch of chemicals that are bad for your health. They have tar, which is used to pave roads. They also contain the same chemicals found in car exhaust, household cleaners, nail polish remover, and even jet fuel. What happens when someone smokes? People smoke using cigarettes, cigars, and pipes. When someone smokes, they light tobacco and all the chemicals so they burn. They breathe in the smoke so it goes through the airways and into the lungs. Then nicotine in the smoke gets passed into the blood. There are tiny hairs along your airways called cilia. Their job is to sweep away germs so they don't get into your lungs. Smoke can harm cilia and cause breathing problems. Over a long period of time, smoking can hurt lungs and cause diseases like cancer or emphysema. Emphysema is a disease that damages the lungs, so it becomes really hard to breathe. Smoking can also cause problems with the blood vessels in your heart and brain. And over time, tobacco can stain teeth and cause cavities. You're right, Moby. Smoking is harmful to your health. Some people use smokeless tobacco, which is not smoked. Instead, it's sucked or chewed. The nicotine goes right into the blood from the person's mouth. They have to spit a lot because swallowing tobacco can be poisonous. Some people think smokeless tobacco is not as harmful as smoking, but it's just as unhealthy. Some kids try smoking or smokeless tobacco because they want to feel cool or grown up, or they just want to see what it's like. The first time people smoke, they usually cough and choke because their lungs are telling them that smoke is harmful. They might feel sick to their stomach, and some people even throw up. What should you do if someone asks you if you want to smoke? Smoking is illegal for kids. If you see a kid smoking at school, you should tell a teacher or an aide. If someone asks you if you want to smoke, just say no thanks. You don't have to give them an explanation or a reason. If someone is smoking near you, you might want to move away. Secondhand smoke is tobacco smoke in the air that is breathed in by people who are not smoking. Secondhand smoke can really bother people, so it's best to keep clear. Many people who smoke know that it's unhealthy, but they're addicted, and so it's hard to quit. If you know people who smoke, you can gently remind them why smoking is harmful, encourage them to quit, and give them support. Nicotine is addictive, and quitting smoking can be very hard, but it can be done. You're right, Moby. Smoking stinks.
Enjoy enjoy this movie, then visit brainpop.com for much more. That's not Mars, it's... Wait a second, you want me to say that other planet? Dear Tim and Moby, is there life on Mars? From Conrad. Yeah, a lot of you have been asking if Moby's a Martian. He isn't. Actually, he's from... Moving on. The short answer is, we don't know if there's any life on Mars. There's definitely no intelligent life. You know, the kind that can build cities and stuff. But Mars has enough in common with Earth that there might be simpler forms of life there. Well, they're more alike than you might think. Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun, the next closest after us. It has a similar tilt, which gives it 4 seasons. And it's terrestrial, which means it's made of rocks and minerals. If you landed on the Martian surface, you'd notice many of the same natural features we have here on Earth. There are canyons and mountains, and its poles have ice caps just like ours. Yep, you can see Mars without a telescope. That's why people have been wondering about it since ancient times. Its reddish color led the ancient Romans to name it after their god of war. And as recently as the early 1900s, some astronomers were certain there was intelligent life up there. They interpreted some lines on the planet's surface as a network of canals. These could only have been created by an advanced society. Nope, they were completely wrong. The canals turned out to be an optical illusion caused by their telescope lenses. As technology improved, astronomers were able to learn a lot more about Mars. Orbiters and landers have been gathering data about the planet since the 1970s. Starting in the 1990s, NASA has sent a series of remote-controlled rovers to explore the surface. So, in the last 40 years, there's been a flood of new information about Mars' climate and geology. Well, like we now know that Mars is red because its surface is covered in iron oxide, better known as rust. And we've learned about Mars' massive dust storms, which can cover the entire planet. So far, no mission has uncovered any evidence of life, but NASA has found some tantalizing hints. The most important clue is the substance that all life depends on. No, water. Most scientists believe that a planet needs liquid water to support life. Only liquid water can deliver nutrients to living cells and dissolve waste. Mars has a very thin atmosphere, so it doesn't trap heat like ours does. The average surface temperature is way below 0. So even though Mars does have water, it's mainly locked up as ice. And the air is mostly carbon dioxide, so it would be impossible for creatures like us to breathe. Right, plants and other organisms can breathe carbon dioxide. And here on Earth, there are microorganisms that thrive in the cold with little or no oxygen. So it's possible that Mars might support more basic forms of life. Recent evidence has hinted at where these Martians could live. Satellite photos of mountains and craters reveal something strange. During the Martian spring and summer, dark streaks grow down their slopes. Then they disappear when the weather gets cold again. Recent analysis confirms that these streaks are what they appear to be, flowing streams of water. Right, even in the summer, most places on Mars are still freezing. But the streams are filled with a chemical that keeps them liquid at very cold temperatures. No life form on Earth could survive in this stuff, but on Mars? It's entirely possible. Anyway, even if Mars is lifeless now, that doesn't mean it was always so. There's plenty of evidence that long ago, water flowed freely throughout the Martian year. There are riverbeds and other landforms that seemed like they were carved by flowing water. If that's true, there's a good chance that Mars once supported life. Since it's more than 4 billion years old, it's kind of difficult to say when. No, silly, those are Mars' moons, Phobos and Deimos. Martian battle destroyers? They're tiny chunks of barren rock. Did you even listen to a word I said? Visit us at brainpop.com for more on this topic and hundreds of others. You'll find movies, games, quizzes, and activities. For learning at your fingertips, check out our mobile apps.
Now listen closely. Here's a little lesson in trickery. This is going down in history. If you want to be a villain number one.
Enjoy this movie, then visit brainpop.com for much more.
Yep, that's where he gave his biggest speech. Dear Tim and Moby, can you do a Martin Luther King movie? Thanks, Sarah. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the most important leader of the American civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was about having universal rights for all people, regardless of gender, income, or skin color. It's hard to believe, but America in the first half of the 20th century was a very different place. In many parts of the country, black people weren't allowed to eat at the same lunch tables, go to the same schools, or even use the same bathrooms as white people. This practice of separating blacks and whites was called segregation. Well, no, and that's the astonishing thing. It was all legal under the Jim Crow laws, a set of rules governing how blacks and whites were allowed to mix. Martin Luther King Jr. grew up in the midst of all that inequality. He was born in 1929 to a middle-class family in Atlanta, Georgia. Both his grandfather and his father were pastors at a local church. King attended religious colleges in Philadelphia and Boston. He was inspired by Northern society's more liberal views of race. Well, black people and white people mixed a little more freely there than in the South. Dr. King returned to the South and moved to Montgomery, Alabama with his wife Coretta in 1953. He became a pastor and a community leader. When a local woman, Rosa Parks, was arrested for refusing to give her bus seat to a white man, King organized a boycott of the Montgomery bus system. Most black citizens of Montgomery refused to ride the buses for over a year. The boycott helped bring about change, and in 1956 a Supreme Court decision banned segregated buses. After that victory, King helped organize a group of churches dedicated to nonviolent protests for civil rights. Dr. King was inspired by the life of Mahatma Gandhi, whose nonviolent leadership helped free India from British rule. Over the next decade, King led protests and marches to support African American rights all over the country. The most famous was the March on Washington in 1963. Over 250,000 people gathered in the nation's capital in support of civil rights. It was there that Reverend Dr. King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
King's gift for eloquent public speaking was a big help to his cause. His protests and marches throughout Alabama turned the world's attention to the issues of civil rights. The rest of the country watched in shock as local police turned fire hoses and attack dogs on peaceful protests. I guess you could say that people back then were threatened by change. King was arrested numerous times during these marches, but it paid off. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 overturned segregation laws around the country. In 1964, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. As the recognized leader of the civil rights movement, he went on to fight against poverty and the Vietnam War. Then, in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. His killer, James Earl Ray, was captured months later. Even though he was only 39 when he died, King changed the face of this country. Without his influence, who knows how long it would have been before equal rights were granted to everyone. Yeah, you're right. We still struggle with racial equality to this day, but thanks to Dr. King, it's a conversation that everyone's involved in, regardless of the color of their skin.
Visit us at brainpop.com for more on this topic and hundreds of others. You'll find movies, games, quizzes, and activities. For learning at your fingertips, check out our mobile apps.
You have to chase a superhero on the run. Just follow my moves and sneak around. Be careful not to make a sound. No, don't touch that.
I don't think this was designed to be flown by a 500-pound robot. Wait a second, can't you fly anyway?
You know that guy?
Dear Tim and Moby, why do so many people talk about Leonardo da Vinci?
Hi there. Want to chat? Wait, Moby, do you know Rocket Ron? Then how do you know he's safe to chat with? What should you do if a stranger sends you a message? My friend Becca sends me instant messages when we're online. And my pen pal Jen emails me jokes. My parents know that they're safe to email or chat with, but sometimes I get emails or messages from people I don't know. Well, Rocket Ron is definitely a stranger. If a stranger contacts you or makes you feel uncomfortable, tell a teacher or a grown-up. They can keep the stranger from bugging you by blocking their emails or instant messages. Sometimes I get emails from people that pretend to know me or tell me I've won a big prize. If I don't know the sender, I don't open the message. How can you be safe on the internet? We're always careful around strangers on the street, and we should do the same with strangers on the internet. We should never share our personal information before asking our parents or teacher. Well, your name, address, phone number, and birthday are all pieces of personal information. You do not have to share where you go to school or pictures of yourself. Moby and I only visit websites that are safe for kids. If we accidentally get to a site that makes us uncomfortable, we tell a grown-up so they can block it. I know it's important to stay safe on the internet, but how can you keep your computer safe? Moby loves playing games on the computer, and Mia uses images from the internet in her projects for school. But we know we shouldn't download anything without asking a grown-up. If you download something from an unsafe website or open an unsafe email, your computer can get a virus. Yep, a computer virus is kind of like the flu. It's a program that keeps your computer from working the right way, and you can accidentally spread it to other computers. You can also keep your computer safe by using strong passwords. Some people can figure out and steal passwords, so it's important to choose good ones that are hard to guess. Your password should never be your own name. They should be long and use a combination of different letters and numbers. And you should never ever share your passwords with anyone. Nope, not even your best friend. Anyway, Moby, there are plenty of ways to be safe on the internet. Maybe that's a little too safe. Moby, can you please turn that down? What is sound? Sound Sound is something you can hear. Sound is a type of energy, like light or heat. Sound is made when something vibrates or moves back and forth quickly. When you talk, you can feel your vocal cords vibrate in your throat. When you hit the triangle, the metal vibrates and pushes the air around it back and forth. This creates sound waves. Yeah, it's kind of like that. When you throw something into a pond, it pushes the water to create little waves. The way the waves move across the water is kind of like how sound waves travel through the air. Except you can't see the sound waves. When you pluck a string on your banjo, it vibrates and makes the air around it vibrate. The vibrations travel through the air in waves. When the waves reach our ears, they make our eardrums vibrate. That's how we hear. What is volume? Volume describes how loud or soft a sound is. Those cymbals are definitely loud. A jackhammer, car horn, and a siren are loud too. The waves of loud sounds have a lot of energy and they can travel pretty far. That's why you can hear the school bell even if you're not near it. The waves of softer sounds have less energy, so they usually don't travel as far. A squeaking mouse, a ticking watch, and a whisper are pretty quiet, so you've got to be up close to hear them. Sounds can be soft or loud, but they can also be high or low. What is pitch? Pitch describes how high or low a sound is. When you play a high note, the string vibrates really quickly. When you play a low note, the string vibrates slower. Some sounds can have low pitch, but also be loud. How does sound move? Sound can travel through air. It can also move through solids and through liquids. Low-pitched sounds travel really well, even in the ocean. A whale can make sounds to communicate with other whales that are thousands of miles away. Sound also bounces off things. Moby, 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 Moby. An echo happens when sound bounces off something and comes back to where it came from. Bats make sounds, and their echoes help them fly around and hunt. Objects can keep some sound waves from reaching your ear. When Mia talks on the phone, she can be pretty loud. But when she closes her door, it gets a lot quieter. The door bounces some of the energy back, but it also absorbs or takes in some of the energy. Even though the door is closed, you can still hear Mia. Some people who work in really loud places use earplugs. Earplugs block a lot of the energy of the sound waves. When I have earmuffs on in the winter, it can be hard to hear. What did you say, Moby? I can't hear you.
Enjoy Enjoy this movie, then visit brainpop.com for much more.
$6. Well, it's 2:00. You can't just change the time because you like the way the hands look. Dear Tim and Moby, how do you measure angles? From Pablo. An angle is made up of two rays that share the same endpoint. This common endpoint is called the vertex. Angles are often named by the label of their vertex, so we could call this angle angle B. If the other angles in the diagram share the same vertex, we'd also use the labels of the rays. So now this is angle ABC. The corners of your house form angles, so do the hands on a clock. Oh, well, I borrowed Dad's protractor, which I'm going to use to measure the angles in our clock. Another way to think of an angle is just as a section of a circle. A protractor represents all 360 degrees in a circle, so we can use it to measure whatever angle we're interested in. At 2:00, we're looking at an acute angle. Acute angles are less than 90 degrees. 3:00 forms a right angle. Right angles are exactly 90 degrees. Clock hands at 4:00 show us an obtuse angle. Obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees. With the hands at 6:00, we're dealing with a straight angle that measures 180 degrees. Right, that's also just a line. That's a pair of angles. Two angles that add up to 180 degrees are called supplementary angles. Two angles that add up to 90 degrees are called complementary angles. So that's about it for measuring angles. We kind of wrecked that clock.
Visit us at brainpop.com for more on this topic and hundreds of others. You'll find movies, games, quizzes, and activities. For learning at your fingertips, check out our mobile apps.
Now look at this net that I just found. When I say go, be ready to throw. Go! Throw it at him, not me! Oh, let's try something else. Now watch and learn. Here's the deal. You slip and slide on this banana peel. What are you doing?
Enjoy this movie, then visit brainpop.com for much more.
You can't just open a bank by yourself, you know. You have to have a charter and a business plan, FDIC insurance. Wow, free checking and no ATM fees? Where do I sign up? Dear Tim and Moby, we are learning about interest in math class, but I still don't get it. Can you tell me what it is? Sincerely, La Diamond. Well, interest is extra money that a bank gives you for keeping your money there. It also works the other way. When you borrow money from a bank, you can't just do it for free. A bank charges you a fee, and that's called interest too. Interest is calculated as a percent, which means the more money you have in the bank, the more extra money you get. And the more money you borrow, the more extra money you have to pay back. There are two types of interest, simple interest and compound interest. Your bank offers simple interest, huh? Okay, I've got $100 here. Let's deposit it and see what happens. I'd like to open an account, please. Wow, free toaster with my new bank account. You didn't steal this from the kitchen, did you? Okay, good. According to this paperwork, my account has an annual interest rate of 12%. That means the interest gets calculated once a year. Interest can also be calculated monthly, quarterly, and even daily. Yeah, I know, you offer yearly interest. Anyway, my $100 is called the principal. Now, to find out how much interest we get, we multiply the interest rate by the principal. Let's see, 12% equals 0.12 times $100. That's $12. So every year, Moby's bank adds $12 to my account. Add that to the $100 principal, and I'd finish my first year at the First National Bank of Moby with $112 in my account. Woohoo! Time to head out to the Ming Garden Buffet. Well, compound interest is a little different. It's paid on both the principal and the interest you've already accumulated. There's really no easy formula for this. To calculate compound interest, it's really best to make a chart, like this one. Yeah, I know, it's complicated, but stick with me and I promise you'll get it. We've already determined that your annual percentage rate, the amount of interest you offer per year, is 12%. Now, if you decided to offer monthly compound interest, you wouldn't pay me 12% interest every month. You'd be giving cash away hand over fist, and your bank wouldn't stay in business. Instead, you'd break things down into 12 monthly installments of 1% each. 1% interest every month doesn't sound great, but just you wait. At the end of the year, I'll have more money than I would if you gave me 12% annual interest. Now, let's start filling out that chart. We know that 1% of 100 is $1. So, after the first month, I'd have $101. The difference with compound interest is that for the next month, you have to calculate 1% of $101, not just 1% of $100 even. Let's see, 0.01 times $101 is $1.01. Now add that to the principal and you get $102.01. For the next month, you take 1% of that $102.01 to get another $1.02 in interest. Add it on to the $102.01, and by next month, my principal is $103.03. If you keep filling out the chart, you can see that the amount of interest I've accrued over a year plus my principal comes out to $112.67 instead of just $112. If I got that deal, well, not only could I hit the buffet, I could buy a candy bar afterwards too. So, do you understand the difference between simple and compound interest? You don't? Are you really sure that you should be running a bank if you don't know how to calculate interest? Okay, this is definitely from my bedroom.
Visit us at brainpop.com for more on this topic and hundreds of others. You'll find movies, games, quizzes, and activities. For learning at your fingertips, check out our mobile apps.
Think this is funny, huh? Well, laugh away then, because this one is yours. To Tim and Moby, I've heard the moon waxes and wanes. What does that mean? From Devon. Hi, Devon. Here on Earth, the moon doesn't always look like a perfect circle in the sky. Its appearance changes over time. It waxes, or grows, and wanes, or shrinks. The moon goes through a cycle of different shapes, or phases, over the course of about 1 month. In fact, the whole concept of months is based on this cycle. Believe it or not, shadows have nothing to do with the moon's phases. You might be picturing the Earth-Moon-Sun system like this. But if everything was all flat like this, you'd get a solar eclipse every time the moon was here. And a lunar eclipse every time it was here. In reality, eclipses are quite rare. Okay, let's see how it really looks. The moon's orbit around the Earth is tilted about 5 degrees from our orbit around the Sun. So in most cases, any shadows cast by the Earth and Moon completely miss each other. Now that we've cleared that up, let's see the phases in action. Like the Earth, half of the Moon's surface is always lit by the Sun, and half is in the dark. But the amount of that bright side that we can see changes as the Moon moves through its orbit. When the Moon is directly between the Earth and Sun, forming a straight line, the entire bright side is facing away from us, so we see nothing at all, or at best a dark disk. This phase is called the new Moon. Right, as you move along in your orbit, more and more of your bright side becomes visible to me. In other words, the Moon is waxing. Phases where you see less than half of the bright side are called crescent moons. When the Moon has completed 1/4 of its orbit around Earth, we see half of its illuminated side. Astronomers call this the first quarter moon, but it's more commonly known as a half moon. Once you can see more than half, it's called a gibbous moon. When the Moon and the Sun are on opposite sides of the Earth, the entire bright side of the Moon is facing towards us, so we see a shiny full moon. It's beautiful, isn't it? Now, as the Moon continues its orbit, we see less and less of its lit side. It passes through the waning gibbous phases, and when it completes 3/4 of its orbit, the other half of the bright side becomes visible as the third quarter moon. Next, it passes through the waning crescent phases, and finally, the Moon comes back around to where it started, and we're back to a new moon. The amount of time between one new moon and the next is called a lunar month, and it's about 29.5 days. But the time it takes for the Moon to make one complete orbit around the Earth is actually a bit less, about 27.3 days. Well, remember, while the Moon travels around the Earth is moving around the Sun. So when the Moon finishes one complete circuit, the Earth has moved quite a bit. The three bodies now form an angle instead of a straight line, so we still can see a crescent moon. It takes the Moon about 2 days to catch up and get into the new moon position again. Okay, now we can finally put these costumes away. Oh no, that's no moon. Ah!
Number one.
I'm labeling all the nouns in the classroom. A noun is a person, animal, place, thing, or idea. A noun can be something you see, feel, hear, taste, or smell. What are some nouns for things? Well, nouns are naming words. Chair, table, apple, and chalkboard are all nouns. Right, shirt is also a noun. So are shorts, sock, and sneaker. Leg, arm, hand, and light are nouns too. Girl is a noun that names a person. What are some nouns for people and animals? The park is crowded. There are a lot of people here. I see a man, a woman, a baby, a boy, a magician, and a rabbit. Right, Moby. Nouns can name animals, too. I see a squirrel, a bee, a butterfly, and a robin with a worm. I also see a pigeon. Nouns can name more than one person or thing, too. One kid rides a bike. Now, 2 kids ride bikes. I see one roller skater, but I see many dogs. You're right, Moby. The park is a fun place to hang out. What are some nouns for places? A place is somewhere you can go. Home, store, and fire station are all nouns that name places. A school is a place where you learn, but there are places inside the school, like the library, gym, or cafeteria. The park sure is one of my favorite places to hang out. Right, this is Madison Park. What are proper nouns? A proper noun is a noun that names a specific person, animal, place, thing, or idea. We always begin a proper noun with a capital letter. The names of people and pets are proper nouns, like Mia, Moby, Annie, and Senior Maurice. So we capitalize the first letter of each name. Madison Park is the specific name of this park, so we use uppercase letters at the beginning of each word. Names of countries, states, cities, and streets are proper nouns, so they're always capitalized. Names of buildings or monuments are also proper nouns. Cracker is not a proper noun, so it begins with a lowercase letter. But crispy wheats is a specific name, so it's a proper noun that gets capitalized. A lake is not a proper noun, but Golden Lake is a name, so you capitalize it. My friend Moby shares his sandwich with the ducks. The words friend, sandwich, and ducks are all nouns. Oh, I forgot to capitalize your name. Names are always proper nouns. It's important to look over your writing to make sure you capitalized correctly. Moby, I think that's enough now.